I also asked all the participants to mute your microphones. And just another thing before we start is I would like to inform all participants a few arrangements. If you have questions for the panelists, or if you would like to make any comments, please kindly send your questions or flag us in the chat room so that we can later raise the questions for you. Now, I would like to ask all panelists to turn on your video on your camera so that we'll take one group photo of this event. Okay, can we have everyone now? Okay, let's take 1, 2, 3, smile everyone. Okay, another one, 1. Oh. Okay. Okay. Ambassador Concrete, we cannot see you fully in your camera, please. สวัสดีค่ะท่านทูต that's much better. So everyone, be ready. 1, 2, 3. Let's take another shot,นะคะ. Ambassador Concrete, please be ready. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, thank you everyone. My name is Piyaporn Puttanapadna. I'm counselor at the Royal Thai Embassy in Hanoi, and I'll be the MC for today. Now, I would like to, without further ado, I'd like to invite His Excellency Mr. Nikorndej Palangun, Ambassador of the Kingdom of Thailand to Vietnam, to deliver welcoming remarks. Please, Excellency.
Thank you. Distinguished guests, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, Sawasdee krap, Xin chào. I'm pleased that our talk today can take place amidst strict social distancing measures in Hanoi. I joined the Vietnamese government effort to prevent and control the spread of the pandemic and hope that businesses and activities will soon resume to normal. Our event today is only made possible with a valuable support from the Investment Promotion Center North Vietnam or the IPCN under the Foreign Investment Agency and the Ministry of Planning and Investment of Vietnam. It is also my great pleasure to welcome the distinguished speakers and all participants, 70 of which have logged in this morning to today's talk on the FTAs and their benefits for foreign business and investors in Vietnam. The talk today is part of a series of activities being organized by the Royal Thai Embassy in Hanoi in celebration of the 45th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Thailand and Vietnam. The series will include topics of interest of Thai investors and business community, both in Vietnam and Thailand. Topics such as the FTAs, startups, 4.0 industrialization, the updated laws and regulations and related business investment. It is our hope that these activities will help open doors for new businesses and investment opportunities, as well as for young entrepreneurs. It has been almost 2 years since the world has faced these new challenges from COVID-19 pandemic. Whilst Vietnam remains one of the few countries in the region with steady and positive economic growth. This is largely the result of the deepening international integration. Having 14 FTAs in effect and over 50 trading partners, Vietnam is one of the most dynamic and attractive countries for business and investment. The FTAs have not only enabled the smooth flow of goods and services across boundaries, they have boosted exports and foreign direct investment. These agreements have helped enhancing the business environment and institution, as well as improving investment climate in the country. It is expected that the FTA will play an important role in the middle and long term by diversifying economies, enabling knowledge and investment and technology transfer from foreign investors, and promote economic growth by a couple of digits in the coming years. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to once again welcome all of our distinguished speakers to today's event. It is an opportune time for us to hear from all of you and to be able to exchange views with our distinguished speakers about the benefits of the FTAs, how foreign businesses could obtain better competitive advantages by investing in Vietnam, key sectors, and potential market expansion. To this end, I wish you all a fruitful and successful talk. Thank you. Khop khun krap.
Thank you, Excellency, for your remarks. We would now listen to the views of our distinguished panelists as an update on investment climate in Vietnam. It will be presented by Ms. Trần Thị Huế, Deputy Director, Investment Promotion Center, North Vietnam, under the Foreign Investment Agency of the Ministry of Planning and Investment in Vietnam. Ms. Huế has started working at the Ministry of Planning and Investment of Vietnam at the Department of Commerce and Services. She joined the ministry. She joined the Foreign Investment Agency under MPI in 2010 until now, in the support of the foreign investors in setting up businesses, as well as advising provinces' investment promotion. I now invite Ms. Huế to take the floor. Please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hear you fine.
Okay. Good morning, His Excellency, the Ambassador, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Huế and I'm coming from the Ministry of Planning and Investment. So my presentation today, I'm going to talk about the policies for attracting foreign investment agencies in the new context. I would like to upgrade the overviews of FDI in Vietnam so far. So my presentation that have four parts. The first one, I'm going to talk about the context in the war and Vietnam. The second one is the FDI in Vietnam, and following by the Thai FDI in Vietnam. The fourth part that will be the advantages of investing in Vietnam, and the last one is the orientation of attracting foreign investment and what Vietnam prepared to attract the FDI. So as far as you can see on the slide, that is the context. We have two main matters so far. The first one is the COVID-19 pandemic, and the second is the global economic crisis. Those two causes lead to the effects of the pending social economic activities and also the global broken supply chains in the world.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Would you please, we haven't seen your screen sharing yet.
Okay.
Your presentation.
Hello, is that okay? Can you see my screen?
see your screen. Would you mind if we help sharing your presentation on this screen, and you just need to let us know that the next page? Would that be okay?
All right. That's fine. Yes. Please.
Second, our team will put your presentation on the screenshot.
All right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, now I give the floor back to you. Just let us know if we need to turn the page for you.
Okay. Okay. So this is like I cannot
able to
manipulate the next slide.
The file yourself. So you need to tell our team when you need to turn to go to the next page of your presentation.
All right. Okay. So for this, yeah, this one is already, or this one. Yeah. So here, when we see this slide with the context in the war, with we have COVID-19 pandemics and also the global economic crisis that lead to the pending social economic activities and also the global broken supply chains in the world. Okay, so flip next. So according to the IMF forecast, we can see they forecast that the global economic recessions will be -3% growth in 2020s, and as well as the Untitled, they predicted that the global FDI also decreased by 30 to 40% in 2020 and 2021. So those countries, if they want to get to manage the GDP growth rate, they have the scenarios. The scenarios will depend on the three factors. The first one is the ability of each country to control the COVID-19 pandemic. The second one is the effectiveness of support policies and also the support packages, and the effectiveness of international cooperation in pandemic prevention in their country. Okay, next. I'm going to give you the reasons, the subjective reasons and objective reasons that impacts on the trends of FDI flows in the world. The first one is the US-China trade war. That is the subjective reasons. And for the objective reasons will be the COVID-19. Those two reasons affects on the FDI flows. And they are going to shift their investment to some countries in the world like Vietnam, Thailand, India, Brazil, or Mexico. It depends. Okay, next, please. So those countries, they have to measure. They measure to support the business and investor. They also measure on investment promotion, means that they have to create the good investment environment for the investor. And they also measure to screen the foreign investment, means that they have to choose to select the good one. Okay, please, next. So to attract the FDI in the world, the countries, they will they will give some new investment incentives. And here I'm going to give you some countries with the incentive. For example, the India, they propose a tax exemption for 10 years for foreign investment from 500 million US dollar in the sectors of medical equipment, etc. Or in Indonesia, they also give the incentive of the tax exemption from 5 to 10 years for the industry like oil refining or the basic chemicals. For Thailand also, Malaysia, Singapore, Philippines, they all have their own policies or incentive, which is attracting a foreign investment. Next, please. However, in some countries, they still worry about the FDI is not as far as good. So they also concerned about the company in the key sector will be acquired by cheaply by foreign partners, or the FDI may create some risks of economics and financial security or national securities of the country if they're receiving much FDI. Okay, please, next. Okay, so that is some current situation regarding the context of the war and of Vietnam. So now I'm moving to the second part, is FDI in Vietnam. So as far as you can see, this is the GDP growth rate from 2006 and until 2021 in Vietnam. We remain the very high GDP growth rate. And here in the last column, we have the quarter second of 2021. The GDP growth rate, GDP growth rate is 5.64. It's quite high, but I have not get the figures for next quarter. Maybe it will be decreased sharply, but since 2006 until now, we achieve the very high GDP growth rate. This next. Yes, and FDI in Vietnam in the figure here. We opened the market to receive the foreign investment since the 1987, and that is a very long story for more than 30 years already. And we are receiving 141 countries and territories who are investing in Vietnam, with a total of more than 33,000 projects, and the investment capital accumulated to 2021 is about $400 million US, in which the Korea, Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, and Hong Kong are the biggest investor in Vietnam. So for 8 months of 2021, the performed capitals in Vietnam is almost $12 billion US. It 2% increase compared to the same periods of last year. And total newly registered capitals, adjusted capital, and share purchase capital is 19 million USD. Okay, please. Yes. So dividing by the sectors, most of the foreign investors come to Vietnam. They are investing in the manufacturing industry. It accounts for nearly 60%, and following by the real estate, 15%, and the producing and distributing electricity and refrigerations is 7%. The service is 3%, construction 4%, and the rest is 12%. Okay, so here is some slides I would like to share about the Thai investment in Vietnam. Okay, so for the first one, you see the Thailand is number 9 out of 141 countries in Vietnam, with total capital is almost 12.7 million, about 13 billion US dollar already invested in Vietnam with 626 projects, and it ranks number 9 in here. Okay, please. So for the fourth part of my presentation, I just give you some reasons, some advantages of investing in Vietnam. Why the people they choose Vietnam as their investment destination. The first reason is the stable politics and open societies. The second is a high and stable economic growth rate. Of course, it's excluding the pandemic time. The third one is competitive production cost. According to some studies coming from the JETRO or World Bank, they make the surveys on the competitive the production cost. So Vietnam production cost is almost like a 10 to 20, 30% lower the countries in the region compared to the countries in the regions. And the fourth one is the abundant human resource. As far as you may know that we have almost 100 people in the population, and 40% of that at the age of working. So annually, the people enter the workforce is quite high. Then that is very attractive to the foreign investor, which is using the large volume of labor force. The next one is the potential markets, and of course, there are like 100 million people could be considered as a big market. The next one is the international integration, and next one is the open policies with lots of competitive incentive. Yeah, annually or currently, our government will give many incentive to the investor, and that will be give you that information later. And the last one is the strategic geographical location. That is very easy to connect, easy to fly, and maybe just imagine like when you are in Vietnam, then you can, how to say, easy to fly to some countries around within maybe 3 to 4 hours, and that is very convenient for investor. Okay, please next. Yeah. So here is some potential sectors for investment. We give the incentive, and we encourage the investor. They are better to investing in some sectors here. The first one is the manufacturing industries. The second one, the medical and pharmaceuticals field. The next one is the information technologies and softwares. And infrastructure and PPP projects are also encouraged. The M&A startups, or agriculture and processing, biotechnology, the real estate, the banking and insurance. That is some potential sectors which is getting a lot of incentive for the foreign investors. Next. Okay, so here's some preparations to receive the FDI flows. We prepare the industrial estates. We also prepare the human resource training. We are preparing for the energy, the economic, the global economic integration. We develop more incentive and favorable institutional frameworks. Also, we set up the task force to promote the FDI corporations. And in detail, okay, so next, please. Okay. We set up a lot of industrial parks with the industrial lands about 80,900 hectares already. set up, and 72% of that is occupied by the investor. And in the also here we have almost 562 industrial parks in the master plan, and we established already about 400, and in which we have 284 industrial parks has been operating, and the other are still under construction. For the economic zones, which is higher get better incentive, is the economic zones. We have 18 economic zones already set up, and the other one is in a plant. And in the columns here, you can see on the right side is some provinces in the south, like Vũng Tàu, Bình Dương, Đồng Nai, or Hồ Chí Minh cities in the fourth column in the right. Means that many industrial parks in the major cities in the south are setting up and operating. In the left side, the sixth column in the left side is the industrial parks in the north of Vietnam, and the other two in the central. Okay, next please. Yes. For the human resource training, we have some plans which is helping the labor force as well as helping the enterprises. For example, we have a plan to cooperate among the university, the college, the vocational training centers, and the enterprises. Means when the company, the enterprise give orders, then the college, the university, they train the workers to from the worker to be skilled workers. And also we develop a database of trained labor force in foreign countries to meet the demand of FDI enterprises. Okay, so please next. Okay, so for the energy, we also the story that before, maybe a few years ago, we are in the situation of shortage of energy, but currently we can meet the demand, and we plan the capacities in 2020, 2021, 2030. And this is in the right side, you can see the operational capacities, and all this energy is that meet the requirement. We serve quite well to the manufacturers. And the Ministry of Industry and Trade has been finalizing the Power Development Master Plan 8, and also promulgating the National Energy Master Plan to submit to the government for approval. So all the investors, they come and invest in Vietnam is not worried about the energy. We are like quite enough. Okay, so next please. Okay, so for the global economic integrations, maybe Miss Chang from BCCI will present about this later, clearly later for you. Yeah. Next, please. Yes. And I just give you this one, is that we have 17 FTA has been signed, negotiate, signed, and some come into effect. 14 in sign and come into effect. The one is signing and coming to effect soon, and the other under negotiation. Okay. This one I couldn't see. This one, this couldn't see the slide. Yes. This one has no information in this slide. Can you refresh or no, the next slide regarding next one, the next slide regarding the incentive. Let me share my screen, and then this is easy. Okay. Is that okay? Hello? Hello? Is it okay? Can you see this one? I'm going to present about the incentive legal frameworks in Vietnam. Hello? Okay, so in this slide, I just give the comparisons. What we are giving for the incentive, as far as you can see, the second column is that by the old law, and the third column is the new law, the new investment law. We give the duration for the tax incentive. Before is 10%, the tax rate in 30 years. But now we give like almost double the tax rate of 5% for maximum a period of 37.5 years. For the tax exemption, okay, for the tax exemption, we give before the 4 years, then 50% tax exemption for 9 years. But now the maximum tax exemption period of 6 years and maximum reduction of 50 years for maximum 13 years. So that is the much different from the old one and the new one. And also the requirement also different. Before we give the priority to the industries, to the location, to the large scale of the projects. But now we are focusing on 4 categories. The first one is investment projects that have huge impact on economics and social development. The second one, the projects with investment of over 30,000 billion Vietnam dong. The third category is the innovation centers, the R&D centers. And the last one, we give the incentive for the projects which is having additional requirement on advanced technology. The percentage of Vietnamese businesses contributing to the supply chains, the percentage of production by Vietnamese businesses. And with those incentives, you can check from the new investment law. And here is the source of that, the legal basics. The source of that is the investment law number 61 2020. For the task force on foreign investment promotion, when we recognize that the FDI is very important to the economy, and also the how to attract the FDI inflows in the new context. Our government, we set up the task force for foreign investment promotion, and heading by the Standing Deputy Prime Minister, Mr. Phạm Bình Minh, and the 2 deputy heads of that. One is coming from the other 2 deputy heads of this task force coming from our ministry. The Minister Nguyễn Chí Dũng is the one, and the deputy, the Vice Minister, also the member of this. And here is all the members of the ministries related also join our task force, and they will have a lot of responsible and duties, which is supporting for the foreign for the FDI in Vietnam. And that is the support which is we are providing to the foreign investor. The first one is we provide the information on the laws and policies. We also connect the state agencies at different levels and provinces. We organize the business matchings for foreign investor. We also support them to solve all the problems that happen during the time they are investing in Vietnam. And that is some information relating to the overviews of FDI in Vietnam. Also some incentive, some current situations in Vietnam, and I hope that information will be how to say give you the views of that, and have some and this is all my presentation, and I would like to stop my conclude my presentation here, and hoping to receive some like a feedback or a question from you in the next sections. Yeah, thank you very much for the attention.
We're aware of pandemic has truly impacted all economies, and you have presented to us how Vietnam has undertaken policies and measures in order to attract investment from outside the region and within the region as well. So I wish to once again remind our participants that if you wish to make any comments, if you have any question for our speakers, please send your message or your questions to the chat room, and I will also raise to our second topic, which is the FTAs and their benefits for foreign businesses and investors in Vietnam. We'll be listening to Dr. Viet, Center for WTO and International Trade under the Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Dr. Viet graduated from the University of Toulouse in France. She has a leading role in advocacy activities of the VCCI related to domestic and international trade policies, with a focus on Vietnam's WTO and FTAs commitments. She has been the key person in giving comments and advices in the drafting team of policies and legal documents on the implementation of CPTPP and EVFTA of Vietnam. I now invite Ms. Dr. Viet to take the floor. Dr. Viet, please.
Good morning. His Excellency, the Ambassador, distinguished guests, thank you very much for inviting me to join this very interesting talk. As presented, I am Nguyễn Thị Thu Trang from the Center for WTO and International Trade of Vietnam Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I'm charged by the organizer to talk to you about the Vietnam's FTA benefits to the foreign businesses and investors in Vietnam. But I would like to first to sorry, it seems that there's problem with my share screen. Just a moment. It's okay now? So I would like first of all to invite you First of all, I would like to invite you to take a flight over a panorama of Vietnam's FTA before landing on the benefits that they could bring to you, the foreign business and investor, by your step-by-step of performance in Vietnam. About the FTA of Vietnam, this is the picture, a map of Vietnam's FTA by flow of time. As you might see, during some 25 years, Vietnam have concluded so far 15 FTA, out of which 14 FTA is now in effect. As you might see, the first half of Vietnam's FTA was concluded in the first 15 years, all related to ASEAN members, and ASEAN Plus is outside partners. The second half of Vietnam's FTA were concluded in this 6 recent years. It means Vietnam is accelerating our speed of concluding and implementing the FTA. For those who love the details, I have a table of all the FTA that Vietnam concluded so far, and also the FTA that Vietnam is now under negotiating with its partners. In overall, we have 17 FTA. Those 17 FTA provide Vietnam with a highway or connection with 57 trade partners spreading all over the world in all continents except for Africa. Some of our FTA, the recent FTAs, are covering large economic region like CPTPP, EVFTA, or the most recent RCEP. The figures of the percentage in global GDP, as you can see on the screen. And I would like also underline that those recent FTA figure among the world's most substantial new generation and high standard FTAs. This means that those FTA cover not only the traditional issue like trading goods, trading services, investment which happens at the border of countries, but open to some new issues, issue behind the border, such as government procurement, labor, environment, state-owned enterprise, etc. Those FTA include the commitments of high standard in terms of liberalization, not only in the percentage of tariff line which will be eliminated, but also the condition of market access for services, for investments, and the high standard in rules relating to For example, intellectual property rights, labor and environment, and other things. So I hope that we have now an overall picture of Vietnam's FTA, and now we will start to talk about the part of my presentation today, the benefits that those 17 FTA are expected to bring to you, the foreign businesses and investors in Vietnam. Those benefits will be described by step by step through your investment businesses in Vietnam. First of all, market entrance. Vietnam, through the FTA commitments, open its market for, first of all, the foreign goods by eliminating the tariff and by minimizing the non-tariff barriers. As you can see in this table, Vietnam commits in its FTAs to eliminate from 70% to 98% of its all tariff lines by the end of elimination schedule. And for the importers and for foreign, if you are traders and you want to export goods to Vietnam, it is quite good news. Vietnam, by the FTA, open not only its market for foreign goods, but also it opened the markets for foreign service provider and investor by lowering the condition for market access for foreign investor in many sectors, larger and more liberal than its promise in WTO commitments. You can see in this table some example from the sectors that Vietnam promised to open better than is now doing in WTO. For example, in this table, for European and UK investor, you can see appearing here, very potential sector for foreign service provider like distribution, communication, financial, or transport services. It is also to note that in those FTA, Vietnam for the first time commit to open its manufacturing sector to foreign investor. That is not to say that Vietnam so far closed its manufacturing to FTA to foreign investor, but it opened its manufacturing sectors for foreign investor by unilateral decision without any commitment in WTO. But with those FTA, Vietnam commit and is binded by its commitment to open the manufacturing sector. So it's it's a kind of guarantee of market open for investors who want to invest in manufacturing sectors in Vietnam. So for the once the investor have their foot in Vietnam, your operation and performance will enjoy the benefits brought in by the FTA commitments of Vietnam. Vietnam commits to provide foreign investor in FTA commitments, WTO plus standard of treatment. It means that foreign investor in Vietnam through the FTA commitments of Vietnam could enjoy fair and equitable treatment, full protection security, non-discriminatory treatment, or non-intervention principle. Also, your person, your staff could enjoy freer movement through Vietnam's FTA commitments. When Vietnam implement those commitments, it provides your staff with longer temporary stay for more type of personnel in more sectors, and a transparent application procedure and approval condition. If for the one who, for the investor who want to import fixed asset, machinery, equipment, or material for your business, for your production, investment in Vietnam, the FTA of Vietnam provide you with cheaper imported inputs from the FTA source through its promise of eliminating tariff lines, as you see in the previous slide. And for your output, the products that you import in Vietnam, or the products that you produce during your investment in Vietnam, if you target the Vietnam domestic markets, then you will see an increasing demand in Vietnam under the positive impact of the FTA. And this increasing demand figure not only with the downstream industry client, but also private or government clients through the government procurement market open promise in the FTA. For the one who target who want to export your products from Vietnam to foreign markets, then you could enjoy tariff elimination promise that Vietnam's FTA partner promise to Vietnam's products. You can, I made some summary of tariff elimination promise that European, UK, and CPTPP partners promise to offer to Vietnam products, to products which are produced in Vietnam. So it's In comparison with Vietnam elimination tariff promise, those promise of eliminating tariff made by Vietnam's partner are even larger and more beneficial to Vietnam's exports. And regarding your fixed asset, your property, whether or not it is visible or invisible, and your capital, all those properties is expected to be better protected through the implementation of Vietnam of its commitments in the FTA. For example, Vietnam promised and Vietnam is now implementing higher standard of protection for your IPR. Vietnam also promised to rely on the international standard in damage remedies in case of expropriation, silver strike, or Vietnam exercise a free principle regarding capital transfer of foreign investor. For the ones who have a dispute which might happen during your businesses, the FTA require Vietnam to provide more reliable dispute settlement mechanism, especially relating to the dispute between you and local authorities, the ISDS. And final, but not least, for the one who care about the sustainable development and trade, the implementation of Vietnam as regard to its commitment in the recent new generation and high standard FTA relating to labor and environment will provide sounder labor standard in Vietnam and more environmental friendly standards in Vietnam. And those will, to some extent, provide you with some kind of guarantee relating to green and human labor for your products produced in Vietnam. So I believe that my time is up. And thank you very much for your kind attention. And if you have any question, I would be very pleased to discuss with you at the discussion section by the end of this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nguyen, Teacher Zhang. Thank you for your presentation, which is very much in detail and very interesting. I'll now turn to our third panelist, Mr. Bruno Jasper, who is Senior Expert and Advisor to the Belgian Embassy and Director General of Viet Sea Industrial Zones. Mr. Jasper will be sharing with us his view on the EU investment in Vietnam. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Jasper to take the floor.
Good morning, everyone. I will try to share the content of my presentation with you. If you allow me 1 second. Can you see my screen?
See your screen.
Okay, that's great. Good morning, everyone from Helsinki in Finland. I am actually here joining the delegation organized by both MPI and the National Assembly of Vietnam on a mission to both look for European investments in and the necessary support in the fight against COVID. I would like to thank you for the invitation to share my insights on the growth of European investments in Vietnam, as well as His Excellency, the Ambassador of Thailand, for this opportunity to speak to all of you. I'll try to be as brief and as concise as possible. If you would have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out afterwards to me during the questions session. I would like to start by pointing out where we are. We are currently based in both Haiphong and Quang Ninh province, and our zones extend in 5 different entities and actually benefit from a very interesting location. And it's straight away a first link to why European investments are looking increasingly towards the north. You can see that we are very close to the Chinese border. And as a result, this allows for direct and just-in-time deliveries from supply chains already established in the north, in the south of China. And once the new highway connection with China is finished, this means that in 12 hours of trucking time, you can reach from Shenzhen actually into Quang Ninh or Haiphong. Now, we've been around for a while. 24 years ago, as a smaller industrial real estate developer, we landed in Haiphong. And Haiphong was a very quiet and very underdeveloped riverport town. Over those 24 years, we've seen many changes, and we've actually had the opportunity to take a front seat in the development of the north of Vietnam, especially at the Haiphong and Quang Ninh sites. Today, I believe it's fair to say that the new infrastructures that have been erected in and around the deep sea port of La Quyen in Haiphong actually enabled both Haiphong and Quang Ninh to become a gateway to the north of Vietnam, both incoming and outgoing. Now, in 1997, we actually started with a first concession of 500 hectares. Part of our success is proven by the fact that today, 2021, we have a portfolio in which we manage 3,400 hectares, of which 2,100 is currently still for sale. And this growth equals itself by the growth of Haiphong and Quang Ninh. In a nutshell, we have 5 zones spread out over 2 provinces. And as you can see, we actually are all located in and around the deep sea port of La Quyen, but still within close limits of the Cat B International Airport, and with very good connections to the new highway between Hanoi and Haiphong, which allows actually within 1.5 hours to reach the city of Hanoi. This is my second hookup. Why European investors are looking into deep sea as such, because logistics cannot be underestimated. It is very important for any investor, not only Europeans, to look into why you would come to a certain place. And all too many times, I believe actually we talk about price. How much does the land cost? but the real price you pay is how much will it cost you to operate your business. And then the price of land becomes less important, but the location is everything. So direct access to a premium logistics setup as the Port of Haiphong, I believe, is a major plus. A second plus is the proximity of the Chinese border. And a third is good connections to the existing logistics towards Hanoi. Now, till a few years ago, this is what we did. We were selling land. And at that time, we had roughly 65% of our customers of Vietnamese origin. At that time, Haiphong was definitely also a lot less popular than today. But we have changed the idea that we should just sell land. You can buy land anywhere. But if you want to have a premium package for investors, you need to do more than just selling that. And we've decided to swap our business model. Because we saw that a lot of foreign investors, when they come in, they do not just want to buy land, they need help. So they want to build a factory, as you can see, but while you're building a factory, there's many things that need to be sorted out. There needs to be an IRC, there needs to be an environmental impact assessment. Once you have all papers ready to go, you need a construction permit, and then you need to construct. So it takes time. And in order to reduce that time frame, we have actually decided to start offering ready-built warehouses and workshops to our customers. That means that the moment that somebody decides to invest in Vietnam, they can rent one of these buildings, they can put in their first machines, they can start up training a core crew of local staff. And once the new factory is then up and running, that core team can then become the trainer for the new hires that they are looking to bring in. This system has proven itself over the past years as a very powerful tool to attract foreign investors, because it offers them not only a time advantage, but also a greater security. And for that reason, we keep developing. Secondly, we have decided also to integrate all services. So as an industrial zone developer from European descent, we have decided to integrate everything ourselves. So we have our own electricity distribution company, we have our own water distribution company, we have our own wastewater treatment systems, and we also have spun out now a solar and wind energy company that is providing green energy to our tenants. The reason why we do this is not only because we believe we can do it better, but especially because we believe that these services are the make or break of a successful investment in Vietnam. And if we take the responsibility to invest in all of these ourselves, we believe we can make that way, once again, the new investor feel more secure about his investment in Vietnam. For that, we have set up a whole range of measures, but the most important part is that we take responsibility. We allow our customers to hold us accountable for their success. We also believe that aside land and the services we develop, we have one more task ahead of us. We believe that whatever we need to do, we need to be convinced that there's only one future, and that future is bound to be sustainable. So under the approach of a much more sustainable strategy, we have pioneered to become the first eco-industrial park in the north of Vietnam, under guidance of MPI and UNIDO. And under that umbrella, we have started to develop a whole flurry of actions in which we try to make a difference that has only one aim: to show that it's possible to create economic growth, but at the same time, prove that we can do that in a responsible and sustainable way. On my screen, you can see actually two examples. One is our road construction. We have decided to replace the bitumen, which is the binding component and also rather polluting component of asphalt roads, by recycled plastic. We collect plastic from our tenants, we clean it, we dry it if needed, we regrind it, and then we will add it as a so-called glue factor into our roads. You can also see at the background a picture of mangroves. That's a picture taken in Guanin, where we have decided to not make our green zones green, but we actually will use our green zone to preserve as much as possible the mangroves that we have in part of our developments. That has a twofold result. One is that we can use the mangrove as a buffer in case of floods or heavy rains. Secondly, we can that way offer to our tenants a very nice and quiet nature park in the middle of our industrial zone. There's many reasons why investors come to us. We have 120 reasons that can convince our future investors, because that's the amount of people that we have managed to convince to invest in deep sea. So far, we see an increasing amount of European companies coming or showing more and more interest because of the new free trade agreements that have been signed off with the European Committee. But we see, as been highlighted by my fellow speakers as well, that the main drive at this very moment still comes from Southeast Asia. Some figures to sum up what we have done. We've created at this very moment more than 10,000 local jobs. We have been capable to attract more than $4 billion in total investment. And last year, despite the pandemic, we managed to have a record year in which we, as Deep Sea alone, have attracted close to $1 billion. I hope that my presentation gave you some insights what are the main drives behind what we think our customers are seeking and what we believe is driving them towards Vietnam. If you would have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to either myself or our team. And there's always a question and answer session at the end of this webinar. Thank you very much for your attention.
Very nice, Jasper. We are very, your presentation is very much interesting. And without further delay, I would like to turn to our next panelist, Mr. Osamu Sudo, who's now currently head of the marketing and sales of Amata Vietnam. He will be sharing with us the view on the advantages of FDI to investment in industrial park. Mr. Sudo, please.
Thank you very much. Can I share the screen? I need
screen now.
Okay. Yeah. Can you see my screen properly? Okay, is that okay now?
Okay.
Right. Hello, everyone. I'm Sudo from Amata Industrial Park, Vietnam. I'm responsible for marketing sales, the project Industrial Park project in Vietnam. Firstly, I try to introduce our business Amata in overview. We are leading industrial park developer from Thailand. Then our country, our business market is we show like this, the CLMBT, which is Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Vietnam, Thailand, that we call Greater Mekong Sub-region, 5 countries, northern part of ASEAN. That is only our business market. And currently, we are operating the 2 industrial parks in Thailand and 3 industrial parks in Vietnam. Then we newly established a new project in Laos and Myanmar, and the Laos project will be launched very soon. That is the overall of Amata Group, what we are doing now. Then especially Vietnam, we keep expanding both northern part of Vietnam and south part of Vietnam. And also we will establish another project in central Vietnam very soon. So those expansion in Vietnam, we are focusing on the new demand of investors, especially FTI, to meet their demand. That is the reason why we keep expanding here. This Amata City Bien Hoa, in Dong Nai province next to Ho Chi Minh City, we established this industrial park since 1994. We are one of the pioneers of the foreign industrial park developer in Vietnam. Then this Amata City Bien Hoa is recognized as the most successful industrial park project in Dong Nai province. So far, we have 172 factories together with us. So such more than 27 years history in Vietnam of Amata, I'd like to present what is the attractiveness of the Vietnam from the especially manufacturer's point of view. It's, okay. Then this is FTI outlook, but let me skip due to the limitation of the time. I just hit the point, the attractiveness of Vietnam first. Firstly, I'd like to focus on the labor force. You see that this is a little bit old, the number, the 2019, but you will see the population, the 96.4 million people there. It's excellent figure itself. And more important things is the ratio of the labor force, the number of working people at the age is quite bigger. For example, if you see the Philippines, comparing to Philippines, the population itself is much bigger than Vietnam. However, the number of workers less than Vietnam. So that is another detail that you may consider to see what is attractiveness in terms of labor force. And not only quantity, you will see the literacy rate here. The 95% of Vietnamese people can write and read. That is very, very important figure for the manufacturers because they need to, they need to educate the workers, of course, for their production, and also the transfer, the skill or technology that is related to this literacy rate, and this indicates the quality of labor. Also excellent, then not only quantity and quality, but also cost. You will see this labor market analysis. This is the matrix between the minimum wage and labor force. Of course, the big number of labor force is the positive, and cheaper cost is positive for manufacturers. For example, the Indonesia here, they have plenty of workforce. However, cost-wise, it's more than the average minimum wage. On the other hand, Myanmar, Laos, PTO, you may enjoy the cheaper cost. However, labor force is kind of less. Malaysia, less labor force and more cost. So if you back to the Vietnam, you will see here, the number of labor force is the next to Indonesia, and the cost also much cheaper than average minimum wage. So that indicates attractiveness in terms of labor force of Vietnam itself. for the manufacturers. Right, then, okay. Then a little bit touch about the cost related again. This is the comparison among the 8 countries in ASEAN. I would like to focus on the utility cost here. The electricity is quite reasonable. Yeah, someone said frequently Vietnam increased the electricity cost recently. However, still as of 2020, the second cheapest among those 8 potential countries. That is quite attractive. And also water, the third cheapest, that is also reasonable. So the cost of the running cost for the manufacturers, that is also another reason why they may prefer to choose Vietnam as the destination of investment. That is labor and cost. So next topic is the kind of stability. I just showed this political stability index here. The most of ASEAN countries, including the China, I just showed as a reference here, the negative score as the political stability. Nowadays, the investors are focusing on the country risk. Then they try to have the more production base in different locations. So what they focusing on is the stability, is the political things. So the Vietnam still keep the positive, the positive score together with Laos and Malaysia. So that is another reason why the people focusing on Vietnam. Right, then a little bit touch stability again. This is not exactly economic stability, but I would like to review the GDP growth overview here. I just showed the 2019 and 20 and the forecast of this year. If you see the 2019, Vietnam got the 7% growth rate. That is one of the highest score among the ASEAN countries. And 2019, of course, you know the COVID impact was not there. So this is kind of the reference of the general condition. Then still the highest position the Vietnam still can keep. And the 2020, if you see that this is almost 3% growth rate. And as you know, the COVID impact is quite significant. Then most of countries got the minus growth rate, especially Philippines, almost 10%. That is really, really critical. Among those situations, then still Vietnam can keep the positive 3% growth rate, and together with Laos and Myanmar, but much higher than those. So that is another good things for Vietnam. Then the most importantly, the forecast of this year, the 6.6%. That focus by the World Bank as of June 2021. Of course, still we have to see very carefully because we got the fourth wave of COVID in Vietnam. Then this figure may drop down a little bit in the future. However, if you review again the other countries, as you may know, the Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, and the worst case is Indonesia. Even foreign experts cannot stay there. Then the foreign experts need to escape from those countries. That is the current situation. So I believe that Vietnam still keep the highest growth rate among ASEAN region at the end of this year. So that indicates again how attractive Vietnam is in terms of manufacturer's point of view. Right. Then next is this is the last topic of the things that the social infrastructure Of course, if you may consider the labors and quality and cost and stability or whatever, but without social infrastructure, you never be successful. Then it's easy for us to say that, hey, Vietnam is already developed, there are plenty of the good infrastructure there. However, how to evaluate is kind of difficult. Then not much people focusing on this information. It's ODA, the developed country inject budget for the support to the supporting to the developing country. That is the figure. Among the 5 countries that I picked it up as the direct competitor of Vietnam. Those figures, if you see that let's say the example, the biggest contributor is Japan. So Japan, why Japanese government try to inject the budget for the ODA like this? Since 2000. Then the highest is Vietnam, as you see. Of course, this is purely assistance to the developing country. However, another logic is here. You see, the inject ODA, then what's happened? The developed infrastructure there. And this infrastructure is for not only Vietnamese entity or Vietnamese people. The Japanese company who invested in Vietnam, then they can enjoy those infrastructure. Then they can be successful as FTI. Those success can contribute back to their own country. That is the logic of ODA. So from that point of view, we will see that Vietnam since 2000 until 2014 is huge amount of ODA received and developed infrastructure very, very well. Then if you compare to other countries, but of course Thailand already developed before, so the ODA was not much injected, even paying back to those countries. Then the figure was minus even. But you know, this figure indicate that for the investors' point of view, that everyone understand that Vietnam is the most potential destination for the investment. That's the reason why the government try to support and develop infrastructure for those the investors, especially the manufacturing. So that is another issue, the indicator to evaluate what is the attractiveness of Vietnam. So the summary here. Of course, there are not only the good things. Actually, I'm salesman, so I try to mention the good things first. However, there's some negative issue also there. For example, the frequent law change. Someone said this is a challenge for doing the business in Vietnam. And someone said difficult to keep the anti-corruption policy. Or manufacturers, some manufacturers said the domestic supply chain is not enough developed, so it's difficult to reduce the production costs together with the domestic supplier stores. So those are the kind of the challenging issue. However, as I explained, there are many big advantage in terms of investment to Vietnam. And even I didn't explain about the tax incentive, but everyone understand that the tax incentive in Vietnam is quite attractive comparing to others. And today, the main topic, the trade value, that already other panelists, they explained it's a huge opportunity there. And this one contribute to the increase of the domestic market as well. So that is the bright future of Vietnam, another element. So those, the positive issue, it must be big, the much bigger than such a negative things. That's the reason why everyone focusing on Vietnam now has another, another the destination of the FDI. Okay, so I just showed the contact detail of mine here. Then even the QR code that you can download our brochures there. So if you have any questions or you try to consult with us about the investment in Vietnam, please feel free to contact us. Thank you very much for your attention. A little bit fast. So sorry, we try to provide the information as much as possible and supporting to new investors as much as possible, let's say. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Sawadee Ka.
Thank you, Mr. Sudo, for your presentation, which is concise and clear. Now I would like to turn to our last but not least presentation on transform FTAs into tangible benefits, experience sharing. We'll be listening to Dr. Viet Anh, Director of General Economic Issues and Integration Studies, Central Institute of Economic Management. Dr. Viet represents Vietnam in APEC Economic Committee since 2011, and he has been the coordinator, friend of the chair group on corporate law and governance under APEC Economic Committee. He also led the team to prepare the enhanced APEC agenda for structural reform in 2021 to 2025, which was endorsed by the third APEC structural reform ministerial meeting in June this year. Now I invite Dr. Viet to take the floor, please.
Okay, good morning. Before I start, I would like to thank His Excellency, the Ambassador, and the Investment Promotion Center of the North of Vietnam for inviting me to speak today. The purpose of my presentation is to share some experience when Vietnam had worked to transform the FTA into the tangible benefits, but not just for our people only, also for the foreign investors and those who operating in Vietnam. And I think some people may wonder whether it's a good timing for us to talk about investment mobilizations and attracting and trying to lure the interest of foreign investors at this stage when Vietnam's economy is having some sort of like difficulties, and we may be expecting some downturn for this quarter alone. But I think if you have been with Vietnamese people and Vietnam's economy for long enough, you know that when we are in difficulties, the economies will start to bounce back, because we had been, I think, it may be surprising to know that, okay, we don't just keep on doing good things during good time, but we can also do better, even better when we are in difficulties. And indeed, during the from the start of the Đổi mới, or the renovation in 1986, we made the drastic reform to promote international economic integration. And it should be noted that economic integration was very highly interactive with the domestic reforms and the economic performance of Vietnam. The periods with the most drastic integration efforts were also those with the radical domestic reforms, and hence the high GDP growth. And we could see that in 1989, 1996, from 2000 until 2007, and from 2015 to 2019. And it should be noted that when Vietnam opened up the economy in 1986, the first thing we did after that was the law on foreign investment in 1987. So I think this is the message of Vietnam to the foreign investors. And even at this stage, when we are in the new period of, with the new policy to attract foreign investment, the emphasis on working with foreign investors is still high in the agenda. But at this stage, given that we are having the COVID pandemic and given the long-term reforms of Vietnam, we aim to promote both economic growth and sustainable development at the same time. So we don't just focus on economic growth alone. We want something long in the future. And we know that the FTAs can contribute to this objective. And as we listened to the speakers earlier, sustainable development is very important. And The FTAs, some FTAs recently, such as the CPTPP, the EU-Vietnam FTA, also contain the provisions related to trade and sustainable development. And that is something that say Vietnam can no longer try to exploit cheap labor, natural resource. We have to change in a way that can contribute to the sustainable development, and we cannot do it alone. I think the foreign investor can give a hand and can join us in the process. And at this stage, when we talk about the economic recovery from COVID-19, we also talk at APEC in terms of the policies, in terms of the reform agenda, and we want to promote something called the green recovery. That is to say, we promote the green economic model even during the recovery process. We don't just wait until the recovery process is over before starting back to get back to sustainable development. We think that the sustainable development has to be done now, and we can't wait. And this is the chart that shows the map of the FTAs of Vietnam. I'm not going to say in details about this chart, given that the earlier speakers already talked about this. I only want to emphasize one thing. In this graph, I don't want to highlight the EU-Vietnam FTA, the FTA of Vietnam with the UK or the CPTPP. I put a large portion of the picture with the ASEAN +6 regions, or now we call it ASEAN +5, which is the ASEAN where we have the India, where the partners between ASEAN and China, South Korea, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. We are still waiting for India to be back to the regional comprehensive economic partnership. But other than that, we still have a lot of partnership within the region here. And this is also the area, the region where we had very vivid development of the value chains and the production network in the past few decades. So I think both Vietnam and Thailand and other countries, other partners coming to the region can benefit from the value chains in the region. And here is the coverage of the FTAs. We talk about the provisions that are developed, that are cover different areas, and I think it may be misleading to see the RCEP, the EU-Vietnam FTA, and the CPTPP on the left-hand side. But this coverage also shows that the more recent FTAs, like the EU-Vietnam FTA, the CPTPP, and the RCEPs, are even more comprehensive than the traditional FTA, meaning that we want to create more opportunities for economic agents here in Vietnam, but we also start to get more demanding in terms of the standards of the FTA. And those demands are not just to create difficulties for foreign investors. Indeed, some of them can protect the investor more effectively. For example, in terms of the intellectual properties, in terms of the government procurement, in terms of the labor environment. There are a bunch of things that can help to alleviate the difficulties for the foreign investor here. And the next bit is about the opportunities for firms. I think we had talked about this, but I also want to say briefly about here. The key opportunities for Vietnam are that we will continue to penetrate the export market. So there has been, and in terms of import, the tariff reduction here and the trade facilitation commitment will also improve our access to high quality inputs. And input here can be either for the companies and input for the domestic consumers. And in terms of consumption, please kindly note that the recent ranking by the World Data Lab has assessed that Vietnam will have about an additional number of like 23 million of middle income people by 2030 compared to 2020. So it also means that there's a bunch of more consumers here in Vietnam who can pay for the imported goods, and that is a large source of demand for the companies here. And also in terms of the tariff reductions, it also means that the investor here can import the spare parts, the materials more cheaper. And that also represents some source of profit for the investor here. But more importantly, the FTA also entails the opportunities for business cooperations and the participation in the global value chains. And that is very important topic that we have talked over the years. And the recent impact assessment here by different organizations and authors also shows the benefits to Vietnam. The first one is for the World Bank. They assess that the tariff reduction alone could have increased Vietnam's GDP by 2.4% and the export by 12% in 2030 compared to the scenario without EVFTA. And the CPTPP and the RCEP, it also can bring the additional benefits to Vietnam in terms of the incomes and in terms of the export. And the most important thing to note is that when we take into account the impact of the US-China trade war, those agreements like CPTPP and the RCEP, even without India, will still benefit Vietnam. But other than that, we still face some challenge. The first thing is the utilization rate of the FTA may be less than expected. And the statistics so far show the relatively low utilization rate, especially for new FTAs. For example, you can check the website of the WTO Center of VCCI with Ms. Chang here, and you can see that the utilization rate of the CPTPP is just 4% for last year. And the figure was a bit higher for the EU-Vietnam FTA at 14.8%, but still very low in general. But the more severe risk is the disruption of the supply chain during the COVID-19 pandemic. And some disruptions are already evident in the export to and the imports from FTA partners, such as the EU or the CPTPP countries and China and others as in ASEAN. But the most important thing to note is when we talk about the FTAs, on the one hand, we see that many sectors are projected to benefit from the FTA, such as the food and beverage, wooden products, garment, leather, shoes, etc. But these are the sectors that are very likely to experience downturn or difficulties during the COVID period. And so the opportunities that do come with the challenges. And the last thing to hear, what are the message to the foreign investors? I think the first thing we should check is that we need to further strengthen the partnership with during the COVID-19 context. And in Vietnamese, we often say a friend in need is a friend indeed. This is the time, the difficulties, and this is the time that we show our partnership, our trust. And this is a golden moment to do it. And the second thing is about the second message then is we need to go beyond the FTAs. Vietnam also need to go beyond the FTAs, and the foreign investors should not just look into the provisions and the commitments of Vietnam, because in real life, some of the changes, some of the commitments, some of the new policies may went past the commitment within the FTAs. For example, we are talking a lot about the digital economy and the evolutions of the digital economy partnership agreements in the region, but that has not been part of the FTAs of Vietnam yet. And the other thing is we also need reforms to complement the FTAs. So if the past lessons of Vietnam has shown that we have the commitments and we have the domestic reforms, and that work best for both the foreign investors and Vietnam's economy. And so we need to go beyond the FTAs to go to the domestic reforms for our domestic benefits. And the other reasons for going beyond the FTA is that some partners may apply the new requirements and regulations on import. I know that Thailand is working, is working with EU to resume the negotiations, the bilateral FTAs. But but for us, I think one of the new things that we're checking now is the potential burden of the carbon border adjustment mechanism that has been implemented by the EU, and that is something that we need to check in the futures on. And I think there is a possibility for Vietnam and Thailand, especially at the firm level, to work together to address the new carbon policy environment. And the last one is fostering the linkage between the FDI and the local firms. I'm not saying that the foreign firms have to come and have to buy from the local firms. This is against the international commitments of Vietnam. But I think fostering those kind of linkage will be beneficial for the foreign firms here. On the one hand, it will help improve the compliance with the rule origins under the FTAs. So FTA is not just about the automatic benefit. You need to comply with the rule origins in order to get the preferential tariff treatment. And fostering those kind of linkage will also help managing the risk of the supply chain disruption. So if you depend on the import from overseas, you may face larger risks when disruptions occur. But with the local supply, I think that kind of thing can help manage the risk. And with that kind of linkage between the FDI firms and the local firm, there could be a greater demand for the industrial estates. And this is also another source of opportunities for foreign investors as well. And indeed, when foreign investors have worked out effectively, like the mode of Amata and other foreign investors here in Vietnam, certainly that will have some sort of like a further push to the linkage between the FDI and the local firms. And this is as the final examples. I'm just presenting here of the two figures that shows the percentage of the Japanese firms in the ASEAN countries that has reported the utilizations of the FTAs for trade from within ASEAN. And you can see that for the cyan line representing Vietnam here, you can see that the Japanese firms operating in Vietnam are having are making larger use of the FTA treatment. So I think they benefit from long-term investment here in Vietnam. And I think that's a good message to you all. With that, I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen, for your presentation, which is very interesting. And it's emphasize one again, the reason that we are gathered here today for today's talk is that the cooperation and the most important is the cooperation between Thailand and Vietnam in this period of pandemic. Now I would like to open let's come into the question and answers discussion session. I have received a couple of questions from our participants. The first one would address to our panelists, Ms. Hui and Ms. Viet from BCCI. The question is, which areas or sectors does Vietnam most welcome from Thailand's business or investment in light of many FTAs, and including the one with the EU? For example, what are those sectors such as the production of raw materials in support of import substitution for further industrialization in Vietnam? This is the first question. Would you like to take to answer the question right away, Ms. Hui and Ms. Nguyen, Dr. Nguyen?
Hello. Regarding the sectors, which is our government, we give most of incentives and encourage the foreign investor to invest in, as far as I share in my presentation. You can see in the slide here we have mentioned the 9 sectors, which is medical and pharmaceuticals, the biotechnology, the manufacturing, the information technologies and software, the infrastructure and PPP, and that is all things which is potential sectors for the investor. And if the investor investing in these sectors, they can get the incentive in terms of the tax, corporate income tax. The tax rate is lower than the normal. The normal is 20%, but in that sectors, they can get the tax rates of 5 to 10%. And also the duration, also longer. 37.5 years, or maybe 6 years or 13 years. Depends on the sectors, depend on the large scale of the projects, then you can get the incentive. Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Viet, would you like to add any comments on this question? Right, perhaps.
Yes,
Dr. Viet, are you still with us?
Yes. Regarding the question on the sectors, services sector that Vietnam open to Thai investor, as you might see, Thailand share with Vietnam all the FTA among ASEAN and ASEAN plus other members. So the relating to service market open, Vietnam open to Thai investor through the service package that ASEAN country conclude together within ASEAN. For the ASEAN plus almost no service market open more than WTO commitment. In those package, we remark that the transport services figure as the most open service sector that Vietnam open to Thai investor larger in comparison with WTO commitment of Vietnam.
Dr. Viet, I have a follow-up question to your presentation as well. In your presentation, there are tables stating that there are products that would benefit from the FTAs. And in that tables, there are comments from our participants that some of the existing products can join the FTAs immediately, but the new products or new trade businesses may have to go through processes and audits from the trading partners of the FTAs. So would you be able to elaborate a little further how what are the procedures that the Vietnamese government is helping the businesses to facilitate the new products or the new businesses to be able to enjoy the benefits of the FTAs, particularly the products that may have to be go through or the G2G first, and then some of which takes quite some long time to be able to benefit from the FTAs.
Yeah, as far as I understand, what the question concern the investment rather than trading goods. For trading goods, it is formed to say that there's no requirement for the products to benefit from the tariff elimination commitment that Vietnam offer in the FTA, except for the requirement relating to rules of origin. So that depends on FTA, And beside that rule of origin and the procedure relating to rule of origin requirement, there's absolutely no further requirement relating to products to be to enjoy the tariff elimination requirement benefit. For the investment, as you might know, the commitments that Vietnam made in the FTA provide benefit to the investor from originated from FTA partners. But in fact, there are two categories of commitment implementation manners. First, for the general commitments relating to the standard of treatment, Vietnam doesn't distinguish the investment between the investment from FTA investor and non-FTA investor. All the foreign investors in Vietnam enjoy the same standard of treatment. But regard to the commitment relating to market access and condition to enter the market, or the commitment relating to the right of investor to be protected through special mechanism like ISDS, or special commitment relating to capital transfer, or to damage remedies in case of expropriation or several strife or others. So for those specific commitments, only the investment that belong to the FTA investors and the investment that start at the from the moment of from the entrance into vigor of the FTA enjoy those benefit from such specific commitments. I don't know I'm not very clear about your specific situation relating to audit or others, but I hope that you could send me an email with the detailed description of your case. Then I could consult the situation and come back with specific question, with specific answer. But in general, that's the general picture that I could share to you.
I think I received additional comments from our panelists, our participants as a follow-up to the explanation you just seek for us. It seems that for new businesses to be able to benefit from the FTA, the company would need to establish a G2G first, and perhaps to be able to discuss this in detail, may I please allow me to perhaps follow on with you on the details of how this could be established and how the businesses could perhaps benefit from the FTA as in more details, so that to allow some other questions to be to be exchanged with other panelists here today, if I may.
Yeah.
So now I have, sorry, Ms.
Sorry, could I interrupt you just one sentence? In general, there's no further or additional requirement relating to new investment to enjoy the benefits of the FTA. It is a principle. If you are investment within the scope of application of the FTA, then you could automatically enjoy the benefit from that FTA. There's no additional requirement for the investor or investment to satisfy to be beneficiary of those commitments.
Thank you. That's very helpful, and I'll surely follow on and perhaps to take this opportunity to discuss with you a little further to address the concern from our private sectors and participants in this talk, if you may allow me to. May I now turn to the questions for our two panelists, Mr. Bruno Jasperia and Mr. Sudo. You mentioned about the pandemic and the very, promising for Vietnam, and there are questions which to ask you about. Is there any increase in the investors in industrial parks, either in the deep sea, and in which sectors after the FTAs enter into effect?
Perhaps I will take as a first that question before I ask my colleague to give his view. I believe we need to be very cautious about the effect in the short term of a free trade agreement. To give you an idea, I am currently, as I stated, in Europe. The free trade agreement is a benefiting factor to increase interest. But the moment that you sign an FTA and the effect it has on attracting investors is at least, we think, 1 or 2 years. There is no immediate boost effect coming straight into a country. Also because, as highlighted partially in the former question, despite the fact that a free trade agreement can be signed, there's a lot of red tape and paperwork to be dealt with. So my view is that it helps, it boosts interest, but between the interest that has been created and the fact that new investors arrive, there is a delay. Now, would we have more interest in Europe? It's very, very difficult to say that at this very moment, because Europe has been suffering even more greatly than Vietnam from an enormous downturn, economically speaking, due to the pandemic. So the effect of the free trade agreement that just has been signed off with Europe last year is very difficult to put in numbers today. We've seen, however, from different free trade agreements in the past, that it does create a boost. And if I look today, especially, I believe the electronics sector, I believe especially Korea, Japan, Taiwan, to a lesser extent China, yes, have created actually a cluster effect, at least for deep sea.
Mr. Bruno. Mr. Sudo, would you wish to add any comments on this question?
Right. Currently we have some potential customers. Then actually our location in North in Quang Ninh province is similar to the deep sea, Mr. Bruno. And as he said, the electronics is the most that inquiry, and also the automotive related that is quite attractive right now. However, the COVID impact, of course, that we have to consider, especially the potential customers that they cannot come into Vietnam to see the actual site. That is another challenge for us. Then some investors, they are a bit conservative now. So they have to see the situation, then come back to Vietnam. That is also another let's say the sharing the information. On the other hand, we have the southern region as well. The Dong Lai province, we have new project, the long-term project. This one, we register as a kind of high-tech industrial park. So the demand from the investors, let's say the medical, from sexual, and also the kind of, the chemical related also come. But still the electronics related is quite a strong demand. That is also another, the sharing information as the actual industrial park operation in Vietnam. So yeah.
Very much, Mr. Sudo. Perhaps last question for our Dr. Viet and Seung. There is a question that when you mentioned about the low utilization rate of the new FTAs, could you please elaborate a little further? Why is that?
Okay, I think we had when we talk about the FTAs and the benefits from the lower tariff when importing the goods or when exporting the goods to the FTA partners. We need to satisfy the rule origins, and those kind of rule origins are designed to avoid that some country just trying to become the free riders. So they don't produce in the country or in the FTA partners, but they just want to export the products and then re-export to get benefits. And that so for the rule origins, there are different type of rule origins here. So, but one of the most popular one is the regional value content or the regional value added. And it's, for example, the figure could be like you need at least 40% of the value added of the products to be from the originating countries. And I think then you can under the FTA, and then you can get the benefits or the lower tariff when you export to the foreign market. But that is the law, the simple way of talking about the rule origin. But indeed, the utilization rate, meaning that the firms could satisfy the rule origin and then get the lower tariff when exporting. And there are a number of reasons for that. For example, the supply networks, the difference between the normal tariff and the tariff under the FTA, etc. But one key reasons concerning the FDI and the foreign investor is that some of them could just come to Vietnam and they had the existing supply network from other countries which are not part of the FTA. For example, when we talk about the EU-Vietnam FTA, but the import from the products from other countries like China or Thailand, then they cannot count the value of those imports as the originating from the originating country, and so they will not be eligible for the FTA the benefits under the FTAs. So I think the key message that is a challenge, and that also leads to the message that the foreign investors should, of course, I mean, it's their choice. As the Vietnamese government and the Vietnamese authority can't do anything about it. We can't force you to do anything you don't like, but it's an advice for the foreign investor to consider the availability and the engagement with the local firms in order to improve the local supply, improve the compliance with the rule origins, and with that you can be in a better position to enjoy the preferential treatment under the FTAs.
Thank you very much, Dr. Viet and Seung, for your explanation. That's very helpful. I ran out of the questions from our participants. If there is no further comments coming in, I would now like to invite Mr. Ambassador, Your Excellency, to deliver closing remarks.
Thank you. distinguished guests, distinguished speakers, distinguished participants. We've come to the end of our talk today. I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation and thanks to Miss Wei, Mr. Zhang, Monsieur Bruno, Mr. Sudo, and Dr. Zheng for your very kind attendance. And I very much appreciate the profound knowledge being shared today, this morning. As I earlier mentioned, that this is the first in a series of talk that the embassy will be organizing. Today's session is a very important and solid foundation for further talk that will take place. Next talk will be addressing issues on startups and then 4.0 industrialization. Today's talk has been very fruitful. I once again would like to thank you. I also would like to encourage all the participants to attend the upcoming talks that will be organized in sequence. We will disseminate the information of further sessions forward. Again, in closing, I would like to thank all the participants, the speakers for today's very fruitful session. Thank you. สวัสดีครับ